This is the Savvy Investor radio show and podcast. For help with your retirement, schedule a 15-minute phone conversation with the team at ProStatus Financial Advisors today. Just call 866-597-1040 and at thesavvyinvestorradio.com.
Hello again, and welcome to the Savvy Investor Radio Show and Podcast with the team at ProStatus Financial. Mike Kinnett is here. Lawrence Kiley is here. We're going to talk through some of the issues of retirement, some of the things that you might be wondering about or worried about. And one of the big things is, how much do you need? We talk about it all the time. Everybody says, how much do I need to save for retirement? Now, if you ask Google or you go to a financial advisor, you may hear the numbers 1.2 million to 1.8 million, because that's generally considered right now what you need for retirement. But why don't you ask people in retirement what they need? And when they talked to these people, only 12% of them said, yeah, that's the number. They said 74% of people in retirement right now have less than that, and they're doing just fine. So, Mike, are we the victim of scare tactics here with the financial industry? What is it? There's a huge difference between what they say we need and what we actually need. What do you see?
Well, I mean, I think it's all relevant to your own particular situation, right? I mean, it depends on what part of the country you are living in. The cost of living in Mississippi is different than it is in Maryland, and Maryland is different than it is in California, so it's all relevant to that. It's your style of living, right? I mean, your comfort of living. So I don't think I think the problem is that people think that there is a universal number, that it's, if you have that $1 million or that 1.2 to 1.8, whatever the numbers happen to be, that's what everybody needs. And the fact is that it's all facts and circumstances and driven by your own specific needs. And, one of the crazy things, and we just had Carla come in the other day. It was kind of amazing because she was almost in the same boat. I mean, her husband had passed prematurely, and she had never thought about the fact that she was going to have this FBI, because he was a retired FBI agent. She didn't realize that she was getting his pension. Mm-hmm. So she's struggling. She's concerned. She had her Social Security, and she had less than $1 million. She had about $800,000 saved up between what was left over from his TSP rollover and her own investments, about $800,000. And she didn't think she could continue to retire. She was worried about having to go back to work. And the fact is that once she came in and sat down with us, and we could sit there and look at the incomes that she had coming in, when we pointed out that she was going to have this survivor benefit, had she been listening to whatever clown that was that said you need 1.2 to 1.8, well, she would have gone back to work. Mm-hmm. And when we sat down and looked at it, it was like, your lifestyle doesn't change a whole lot at all. You basically are stepping in. He was an old federal retiree, so she got basically 100% of his pension. I mean, just under 100%. She had her Social Security. That didn't change. Her income level wasn't changing at all. But again, had she been watching those stupid news reports, had she been listening to the talking heads, had she been scrolling on her phone and seen one of those little reels that say, hey, you need $1.2 million to retire, or and call me so I can show you how you can do that, she wouldn't have continued in retirement. She would have gone back to work. Mm-hmm. She had worked for the school system, so she had a small pension of herself, but she knew she could get back into the school system. She's friends with a principal at one of the local schools, and she was contemplating going back to school as a substitute teacher, working, 3, 4, 5 days a week with the kids, which, our position was, if you're going to enjoy that, I mean, if you want to go back, there's nothing wrong with going back to work or working through retirement if that's what you truly enjoy, but you shouldn't be put into that position. And really, all of the listeners out here, everybody out here that you're contemplating the retirement, in your mind's eye, you've seen some stupid number like that. You have to have this, you have to have that.
And Lawrence, there is a syndrome out there that I know a lot of people who are in their mid-60s, and they're all going, one more year. I'm just going to go one more year. Well, what if they don't need one more year because they're listening to some of these headlines? Have you seen that happen when people walk through the door?
Yeah, I mean, there's this big psychological battle that people are always going through when they're approaching retirement or getting ready to enter retirement, where they're thinking, do I have to go another year? Am I ready to retirement? And it's a big step. So, going from working, getting a paycheck every week or every other week to now I have to depend on what I've saved over my lifetime, the nest egg that I've created. Now I have to depend on that. So there's always this big battle of, I'm pushing it out. Can I actually make the jump? Can I actually retire? And that's where, those big numbers of having 1.2, 1.8 million, What we want to do is we want to get to know you. We want to have a personal conversation. We want to talk about what you have saved, what your goals are, what your spending habits are, what kind of lifestyle do you want to live in retirement. That way we can run some deep analysis. We're not only collecting statements, but we're getting to know you every single aspect so we can create a plan so we can talk about what is the income do you need in retirement? Do you have the income streams to cover that income? Is there a shortfall? And how do we cover that shortfall if there is one? How do we create those income streams for you? Because a lot of times people have that fear, but then when we actually look at the numbers and we draw it out on paper, and not only from an analysis software standpoint, but an actual plan on paper, step by step. This is the income you're getting in from Social Security. This is what's coming in from the pension. This is how many years we need to fill a gap until another source of income comes in. Whatever that might be, we draw it out step by step on a true plan for you so you know exactly what it looks like on paper. Not just a software spitting out numbers saying you're okay to, or this is the probability of success, but an actual step-by-step process on how the income gets created, when we're spending what money, and then we take it a step further and we're making sure that we're tax efficient in how we're taking that money for our clients in retirement.
And I want to point out some really important things that Lawrence mentioned there. First and foremost, he talked about creating those income streams. And the reality is that a lot of people look at it because they've been told this 3% rule or this 4% rule or this 5% rule. And really what that means when you're taking that approach is, one, you're retaining the risk of running out of money, which of course, everybody knows the number one fear people have is running out of money, during their retirement. But when you're following that 3, 4, 5% rule that you've heard about, you're retaining the risk. And it means you have to have padded amount of assets. You have to put away extra assets to make sure you take care of those ups and downs of the market. Because if the market was always earning 5, 6, 7%, if it only earned 5, 6, 7% every single year, you could always take out 4, 5, or 6% and never have to worry about running out of money. The problem is some years the markets are up 20, 30%, and some years the markets are down 20, 30%. And it's all over the place. We know on average the market drops about 20% every 3 years, and we know on average the market drops about 40% about every 7 years. Now, sometimes it comes back immediately, sometimes it takes time. But if you're retaining the risk of running out of money, you have to put away extra reserves. You have to have extra money set aside. But if you transfer the risk of running out of money, if you transfer the risk of running out of money and creating your own pension, if you transfer the risk of running out of money like you would have with your own private pension or with a pension that you get from a government or from an employer, or transfer the risk like you get from Social Security, those incomes, it means you have to have set aside a lot less money to create that retirement income that you want. Well, people don't understand that. They think it's just a flat, simple number. 5% I can take out, and that's how much money I have to have. That's wrong. That's a wrong assumption. The second point that I wanted to share with you guys that Lawrence made here is that whole idea about taxes. Imagine right now for most of us, when we go into retirement, we've never had proper tax planning. The advisors that we work with have told us over and over again, it's not my job, go talk to some tax person. And if you're losing 20 to 30% right off the top to taxes, imagine how much more money you have to have in your nest egg to afford to give Uncle Sam 20 to 30% so that you can have the balance. Well, if you're more tax efficient, if you've made the right choices about how to structure your tax buckets, everybody understands we diversify our investments along non-correlated asset classes, right? We want to have some in small caps, some in large caps, some in international, all that stuff. People get that part, diversifying the portfolio. How about diversifying your tax buckets so you can control the tax expenses? And that's what Lawrence was mentioning. The fact is, if you're losing 20 to 30%, you're right. You have to have a lot more money. Maybe you need 1.8 million because you're going to lose 30 to 40% to the tax man, and that gives you the 1 million that you need, the 1.2. Well, what happens if you're not paying that tax bill in the first place because you were strategically smart about how you allocated your assets and you're not losing 20 to 30%? Maybe you only need that million. Maybe you only need 800,000 because not only are you tax sensitive and tax smart and tax savvy, but you're also transfer the risk to somebody else to make sure that you never run out of money. And that conversation starts by picking up the phone and giving us a call at 866-597-1040, 866-597-1040. Sit down with Ryan, myself, Lawrence, the whole team here at ProStatus. We will show you how to create income streams you'll never outlive. We're going to talk to you about how much risk you're taking. We're talking about the fees. We're going to talk about long-term care, estate planning, and folks, taxes. I cannot stress enough how important tax planning is, not only while you're working, not only when you're trying to sell your business, but through retirement. Taxes matter. Pick up the phone, 866-597-1040.
Yeah, when you think about yourself in retirement, it's like you got a bucket and your money's in your bucket and there's a leak in your bucket. That's you. You're pulling money out. Is there another leak in your bucket that's going out that says taxes? Let's figure that out together. Give the team at ProStatus a call. Take a look at our website, 866-597-1040. 866-597-1040. If you've saved $500,000 or more for retirement, this is when you're going to really see the difference that planning makes. The SavvyInvestorRadio.com is our website. You can start right there. Number of buttons on the front page. One says tax analysis. You can click on that as well. That's going to do it for today for the Savvy Investor Radio Show and podcast. Lawrence will give you the last word on this one.
This is Lawrence Kiley. Thank you for listening to the Savvy Investor Radio Show and podcast.
And this is Mike Kinnett. We'll see you, the Savvy Investor, next week.
Advisory services offered through ProStatus Financial Advisors Group, a registered investment advisor. Insurance licensed in Maryland. ProStatus Financial Advisors Group, LLC is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if ProStatus Financial Advisors Group is licensed in your state, please call 410-863-1040. ProStatus Group, LLC is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through representatives of ProStatus Financial Advisors Group.